Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something you already know deep down. Success isn't an accident, and it's certainly not a knock at your door from luck dressed in a tuxedo. It's engineered quietly, daily, intentionally in your mind long before it arrives in your life. A millionaire's bank account begins with a mindset, not a paycheck. You can hand two people the same opportunity. One will multiply it, the other will drop it. The difference is not talent or timing or a magic strategy. It's mental training, the ability to think with clarity under pressure, to act with purpose when it's easier to drift, to demand the best from yourself in moments no one is watching. Training your mind like a millionaire starts with what you feed it. Are you consuming thoughts that expand your world or shrink it? Millionaires read not to brag, but to adapt. They invest in learning not because they don't know enough, but because they know growth never ends. They ask better questions, not why me, but what can I build from this? The next piece is emotional control. Millionaires feel fear and move anyway. They feel doubt and plan anyway because they know emotion is a passenger, vision is the driver. Most people wait for perfect motivation before acting. Millionaire minds act until motivation arrives. They understand motion creates momentum, and then there's resilience. Life throws curveballs. Others complain. They recalibrate. They know every setback carries a seed for a bigger comeback if you're mentally trained to look for it. When others say it's over, the millionaire mind whispers it's beginning. They treat discomfort as the gym their mindset works out in. Every trial is a training session. Every failure is feedback. Every day is data. So how do you join them? No silver spoon needed. Begin exactly where you are by turning your default reactions into deliberate responses. Teach your mind to focus on solutions, not spirals. Practice discipline in tiny ways so you're strong when large challenges hit. Start acting like your future depends on today because it does. You don't need to change who you are. You need to change what you believe you're capable of. Millionaires aren't born thinking differently, they train themselves to. And if they can train their minds to create a life most only dream about, so can you. Millionaires are not sitting around hoping that life eventually hands them success. Instead, they take control over how they think and behave on a daily basis and build mental frameworks that shape their outcomes. They recognize that wishing places power outside themselves while wiring their thinking puts power in their own hands. That process is not casual or accidental. It is deliberate and disciplined, requiring intentional habits and mental conditioning. This wiring is a form of self-programming where they install belief systems that reinforce success thinking rather than survival thinking. They start by identifying patterns of thought that serve their long-term goals and ruthlessly remove the ones that sabotage progress. To wire these patterns, they engage in repetitive routines such as journaling, reading, practicing gratitude, goal setting, and exposure to environments that challenge and expand their thinking. They understand that mental conditioning is exactly like physical conditioning. If you want stronger muscles, you train them consistently. If you want stronger thoughts, you must direct them consistently. Wishing is a passive act, but wiring their thinking is active, ongoing commitment. They choose habits that reinforce focus, discipline, optimism, and problem solving. They track their thoughts for signs of self-doubt and intervene immediately, replacing them with more empowering narratives because they know the brain reinforces whatever is repeated most. People allow their mental habits to form by accident. Millionaires form them by design. They curate the content that enters their mind. They surround themselves with people who stretch their standards. They seek mentors, books, and environments that feed resilience rather than apathy. This is mental conditioning in action. They repeatedly expose their mind to messages of possibility until those messages become their new normal mean. While wishing requires none of this, structure is flimsy in the face of difficulty and relies on external events to improve their life. Millionaires keep their internal world stronger than external circumstances, so even when everything around them is uncertain, Their mindset remains stable wiring. Their thinking also means they do not wait for motivation. They build habits that keep them moving regardless of how they feel by conditioning their mind to value action. They train themselves to execute on their plans even on days where inspiration is missing. This ability to take action without emotional permission is a major dividing line between those who wish and those who achieve. Mental conditioning makes their behavior more predictable in the direction of success because it hardwires routines such as waking up early, managing money, learning daily, cultivating networks, or practicing clear communication into autopilot mode. Over time, these habits produce compounding returns, which is the real secret behind many fortunes. This mindset wiring also helps them handle risk and failure differently because they have strengthened their thoughts. They can endure setbacks without collapsing emotionally. Their conditioning tells them that failure is feedback rather than a verdict, so they bounce back quickly. This creates a self-reinforcing loop where their resilience makes them more likely to succeed, and that success strengthens their mindset. Further installing the millionaire mental wiring means reprogramming how they talk to themselves. Instead of vague wishing, like "I hope things work out," they use precise affirmations and questions like "What action must I take today to achieve my goal?" They train themselves to take radical responsibility for their outcomes rather than blaming luck, timing, or circumstances. That sense of ownership adds incredible momentum because they no longer wait for ideal conditions, they create them. They regularly visualize success not as fantasy, but as practice, ingraining images of themselves winning so that when opportunities appear, they feel familiar rather than overwhelming. Mental conditioning also involves setting boundaries so they do not expose their mind to negativity that drains their energy. They protect their focus because they know that what steals their mental energy ultimately steals their future. They design morning and evening routines to reinforce clarity and purpose, so each day begins and ends with reinforcement of their plans. This accumulates a powerful psychological foundation that keeps them aligned with their larger vision even when small distractions or delays arise. Wishing operates in contrast as a reactive state, hoping something changes. Wiring operates in a proactive state, deciding to become someone different. Once their thinking is wired for achievement, the kinds of actions they take change automatically, which alters their external results. This is why many millionaires talk about mind set more than strategy, because even the best strategies fail if the mind executing them is full of fear, doubt, or inconsistency. They experiment with conditioning techniques like affirmations, meditation, positive expectation, and habit stacking because they know the brain will believe what it repeatedly experiences. Eventually, what once felt awkward, like thinking big, taking risks, or continuously learning, becomes natural. Due to this wiring, they reach a point where it is more uncomfortable to stay stagnant than to grow, because their mind has conditioned itself to associate pleasure with progress and pain with complacency. So while the average person may wish for success while staying in routines that contradict it, millionaires consciously build their routines to support it. Their inner dialogue is structured, their daily habits are intentional, and their emotional reactions are trained through practice. Every day, they reinforce who they want to become, which is why they continue to evolve. They do not rely on wishful thinking because they are too busy installing software in their mind, shaping their attitudes and sharpening their habits. As a result, they continuously create the outcomes others dream about, not through magic, but through relentless mental conditioning. They choose thoughts that serve them until those thoughts become their identity. Understand that wiring their thinking does not happen overnight, so they respect the process, applying patience and discipline. Ultimately, mental wiring becomes the cornerstone of their success because it maintains their standards, focus, courage, and willingness to act long after the novelty of dreaming has worn off. Wishing without wiring creates frustration. Wiring without wishing creates power. A millionaire mind set doesn't flinch at the appearance of a challenge because it is conditioned to interpret pressure differently from most people. Where others see barriers that threaten comfort or security, Those with a winning mindset see prompts for expansion and growth in their world. Challenges are not unpleasant detours, but invitations into deeper layers of capability. Challenges call them into action, awakening their creativity, persistence, and strategy muscles, which often lie dormant in easier times. They recognize that greatness almost never emerges from routine. Instead, it is forged in moments that test their adaptability and commitment. The average person recoils from struggle, searching for quick solutions or easier paths. So when an obstacle appears, their emotional reflex is to retreat or complain. This response reinforces a cycle of limitation, as each withdrawal trains the mind to treat discomfort as danger. But millionaires deliberately train themselves to respond differently when life presents resistance. They lean in, viewing it as a sign that they are on the brink of breakthrough. By reframing obstacles as invitations, they remain emotionally calm at a point when others panic. That calm is not passive. It is an alert focus that allows them to see advantages that panic would hide. The invitation mindset transforms challenge from something that closes opportunity into something that opens them. With this perspective, every difficulty is a teacher, every failure supplies clues, every rejection builds resilience. While most people want the reward without the discomfort of earning it, successful individuals understand that the discomfort itself is the earning process, and that the bigger the challenge, the greater the invitation for personal transformation. Their reaction to challenge becomes a choice rather than a reflex. This choice to interpret obstacles as invitations keeps them proactive, where others become reactive. Instead of waiting for things to return to normal, they construct new normals, better normals. The invitation perspective also frees them from fear. Challenges become less intimidating because they are no longer unexpected enemies, but familiar guests that visit whenever there is progress to be made. This does not mean they enjoy chaos, but that they value the refining power it brings. They begin asking, what skill is this challenge asking me to sharpen? What belief must I upgrade? What strategic angle must I discover? Each challenge becomes a puzzle rather than a threat, and the joy becomes mastering puzzles rather than avoiding them. This mindset converts negative energy into fuel. It moves their internal narrative from "why is this happening to me" to "what is this calling me to become?" This shift creates resilience because the purpose becomes larger than the pain. Their sense of self is no longer tied to flawless performance, but to courageous engagement, so they suffer fewer crises of confidence when facing difficulties. Challenge is no longer a commentary on their value, but a request for their next level of capability. The invitation perspective expands strategic thinking. Millionaire-minded individuals look at obstacles and consider them invitations to unlock creativity. Through these mental requests, they consciously activate problem-solving capacities that would stay dormant if life stayed easy. Because they know challenge is inevitable, they train their expectations accordingly. They stop waiting for life to become easy and instead build themselves into people who can handle hard. Then a fascinating effect occurs. What used to be difficult becomes manageable. What used to be intimidating becomes routine, because they have adapted their mental and emotional systems upward. The greater the challenge, the bigger the invitation, so they continuously stretch into environments that raise the stakes, where learning is faster, pressure is higher, and rewards are broader over time. This builds a mental toughness unseen in those who cling to comfort. They cultivate judgment, optimism, and patience all at once. They refuse to negotiate away their long-term goals in exchange for short-term ease, because the invitation mindset tells them that sacrifice is temporary, but growth is permanent. This thinking alters how they plan their lives. They no longer seek to avoid problems, but to outgrow them. They approach business ventures, relationships, and goals with the knowledge that difficulty is coming, so when it arrives it does not destabilize them. It simply signals that they have stepped into new terrain for them. Challenges are invitations from the next version of themselves, inviting them to prove they can handle what they've been asking for. If someone wants to achieve higher levels of success, they understand challenges must arrive to prepare their mental and emotional architecture to sustain that success. Otherwise, it would collapse under pressure. So they value those moments. Others might see losing a client, a market crash a harsh critique or a temporary defeat as traumatic. They see them as invitations to analyze, strengthen, refine, and return stronger. Every comeback story they admire was built on this same philosophy. By making this shift from obstacles being roadblocks to invitations for improvement, they become unstoppable. Instead of feeling at the mercy of circumstances, they place themselves at the center of their narrative as someone who turns problems into pillars of advancement. They train their emotions to remain neutral and their thoughts to remain constructive, thereby creating progress where others see paralysis. This mindset becomes a competitive edge because challenges that would stop ordinary thinkers become gateways for them. Their willingness to accept these invitations repeatedly over time deepens their capacity, making them fit for bigger opportunities. Every challenge invites them to learn faster, adapt better, and lead more powerfully. This is why millionaire thinkers grow in influence, as they treat adversity like a personal development summons. They become more sophisticated thinkers capable of impacting larger arenas. They know the world rewards not just brilliance, but resilience, and that invitations disguised as obstacles are the universe's way of expanding both. When you start viewing challenges through this lens, your relationship to fear changes. Instead of fearing failure, you fear stagnation. Instead of hoping things get easier, you hope your mind gets stronger because you can handle whatever arrives. And with that fearless curiosity, what once looked like an obstacle starts looking like the next step on your staircase to success.